Outlander is back with the 6th episode of Season 7, and this installment was a real interesting one. Titled Where the Waters Meet, we saw the past and present coming together, different sides of the war assisting one another, and also a historic language being brought to the forefront in the modern day. Oh, and a massive reveal at the end. So with that, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Outlander Season 7 Episode 6, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Oh, and if you enjoy the video, then feel free to hit subscribe. Thanks. Let's start with one of the most important things in this episode, the reveal of the Nuckelavee that Jem and Amanda had been seeing since returning to the 1980s. Whilst it wasn't a demonic mythical creature, it was instead Buck Mackenzie from the 1700s. An individual who almost got Roger killed when he was in the previous time period, with Roger hitting him upon laying his eyes on him for the first time and it then cutting to black. We didn't get to find out how it was that he managed to end up in the modern day, and how he knew that Roger and Bree would be where they were. With all of the talks of ley lines potentially interacting with the stone circles, maybe he accidentally did something and got shot forward into this time period, but that's something that we're definitely going to be finding out more of in the next episode, and it's something I can't wait to see. While sticking in the modern day time period, there wasn't actually that much occurred which had excitement involved. Instead, it was more focused on Roger wanting to preserve the Highlanders' language and history, something which landed him a job at teaching at Jeremiah's school. It was here where we saw paths cross and Roger met Rob Cameron, the individual that locked Bree in the tunnel in the previous episode. He was there because his nephew attended the school, but what was particularly interesting about this moment was the fact that he was extremely interested in Roger, and he wanted to arrange a time to go round to his house so that they could have dinner together. So Rob Cameron was extremely keen. After accidentally being given Roger's journal that he's writing in, which contained all of the information on time travel that he knew about, it was passed off as a piece of science fiction and a novel that Roger was writing. But it very much felt like Rob Cameron knew that there was some kind of realness to the words that he was reading that were written on the page. Hence why he was keen to go around to Roger's house, maybe to see if there were any other clues about time travel or anything else like that. So it definitely seems as though he could become an antagonist in the modern day, especially judging by his slimy, snaky nature. He's very much out for himself, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that character is going to develop, and also how he'll tie into the wider story. The portal that we saw in the previous episode was something that was also addressed in this episode too. Bree mentioned it to Roger and they believed that the stones interact with the ley lines that are around the country, and then, when they meet, time portals can be created. So although it's not an in-depth explanation, they did address it, and I imagine they will later on down the line. I did actually do a full video breaking down what it could be, so it should be in the top corner now. Now let's get on to the 1700s. Within this part of the story, we saw that Jamie, Claire, and the rest of the Continental Army had to flee Fort Ticonderoga following the British Army launching an attack, and they were now looking to head south to evade the British troops, something which some of them were able to do. But we saw that there was an individual called Mrs. Raven who was struggling with the fear that she could be caught at any moment, and she didn't want to die. After leaving the group, she ended up ending it all for herself. However, Claire had gone looking for her, but when she found her, she was captured by British troops. This was where we saw the main part of the story taking place. The fact that even when she's a prisoner of the crown and in a state where she should have been fearful for her own life, she was still looking out for others. Claire was reunited with Walter, the individual who had to have his leg amputated in the previous episode. However, he sadly died due to the injuries that he had, and the fact that there wasn't enough food, medicine, or room for treatment. Whilst inside of Fort Ticonderoga, Claire saw William, Jamie's son, and he assisted in helping her on a couple of different occasions. The first was in bringing supplies to the prisoners, and the second was then in allowing her and Ian to escape. Ian went in to retrieve Claire, being disguised as an ally, but in actual fact he wasn't at all. William only allowed the both of them to leave because he viewed it as a life for a life, in the sense that Claire saved his father once before, and Ian saved William's life only a couple of episodes ago. But now the slate was wiped clean, so if they were to meet again, especially on the battlefield, it wouldn't matter. I thought this painted out the harshness of war. in the sense that two people that can get on extremely well and are willing to save the other outside of the context of battle are eventually forced to go up against one another and harm the other in the context of war. It's brutal. With Jamie and Claire being reunited after she was returned by Ian, we saw them travel for a couple of days until they caught up to the rest of the Continental Army. It was here where Jamie was recruited as a rifleman and was prepared to put his journey to Scotland on hold in order to continue fighting for the Continental Army, which ultimately meant that he would be facing off against his son. I feel there's definitely something that's going to happen with that, whether or not he'll be in a situation where he sees William and he refuses to fire, which could eventually lead to the death of members on his side, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We heard that the Battle of Saratoga is what is going to be happening next, and with it being the turning point in the war where the Continental Army gains more strength and comes out on top, it's going to be interesting to see where the show goes from there, as for the most part it's felt as though they've been on the back foot. We saw that Ian and Rachel were still getting to know each other and were growing closer over the course of this episode. It was right at the end where we saw that Ian was rather shy in approaching Rachel, and he showed that he did care deeply for her. It's very flirtatious at the moment, and neither of them are telling each other how they truly feel, but I think it's definitely on the horizon. I predict we'll see them together very soon. Judging by the trailer for next week's episode, episode 7, it looks like it's going to be the most exciting one of the season so far. The battle is going to be taking place, plus it looks like Rob Cameron is going to be sinking his claws deeper into the Mackenzies, as he looks to find out as much as he can from them, as that arranged dinner is definitely going to be taking place. Overall review. I thought episode 6 was a good one. It was a rather slow episode in terms of not that much happened with action within it. That mainly came from the beginning where we saw that Jamie had to fend off a couple of soldiers, but it was more about the two sides connecting across many different arms of the story. With Buck Mackenzie arriving in the modern day time period, I'm extremely excited to see what his character is going to bring to the story, and how he ended up arriving there, plus if the relationship between Roger and Buck is going to be frosty. It seems as though Roger is also going to be getting jealous of Rob Cameron, and the fact that he feels as though Rob's interested in Bree, so I wonder if that's going to be something that also gets developed in the story as well, which could cause a lot of conflict. It very much feels like we've risen to a height and there's going to be a crescendo at any moment, both in the modern day and in the past, so I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Bring on the next episode. So, there you have it, Outlander Season 7 Episode 6, Ending Explained. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.